On the 23rd of May, 1992, a highway in Sicily exploded. 500 kilograms of TNT buried under the asphalt detonated as a motorcade passed over it. Judge Giovanni Falcone, the man who had spent his entire career destroying the most powerful criminal organization in history, was dead. His wife, dead. 3 bodyguards, dead. And the men responsible, they never even left Sicily. This is the story of Cosa Nostra, the organization so powerful it murdered judges, politicians, and police chiefs in broad daylight, and ruled an entire island for over a century. This is how it rose. This is how it ruled. And this is how it finally began to fall. The rise and fall of Cosa Nostra, Italy's most feared crime family. To understand Cosa Nostra, you have to understand Sicily. For centuries, this island was passed like a trophy between foreign rulers. The Arabs, the Normans, the Spanish. The Sicilian people learned one fundamental truth. The government was never on their side, so they created their own. In the 1800s, wealthy landowners began hiring private armed men, enforcers, to protect their estates and collect their debts. These men operated in the shadows. They made their own rules. They settled disputes the courts wouldn't touch. They called themselves men of honor. The outside world would come to call them the Mafia. But Cosa Nostra, which literally means our thing, was not a loose network of gangsters. It was a structure, a government within a government. Each city in Sicily had a family. Each family had a boss, an underboss, and a network of soldiers organized into small cells called decine. And above all, the family sat a governing body, the commission, the cupola, the most powerful criminal board of directors in history. Nobody joined freely. You were chosen. You were watched for years before an invitation ever came. And when it did, the initiation ceremony was unlike anything in the modern world. A new member would prick his finger, let the blood drip onto a holy image, usually a saint. The image was set on fire, and as it burned in his cupped hands, he swore an oath. I enter alive into this organization, and I will only leave it dead. That oath wasn't poetry. It was a contract. And Cosa Nostra always collected on its contracts. By the early 20th century, Cosa Nostra had a problem and an opportunity. Both arrived on the same ships. Millions of Sicilian immigrants were flooding into America, New York, Chicago, New Orleans. Cosa Nostra traveled with them. Bosses began setting up operations in American cities, running extortion rackets in Italian immigrant neighborhoods. The Americans called it the Black Hand. But it was in the 1930s that everything changed. One man restructured the entire operation. His name was Charles Luciano, better known as Lucky. Lucky Luciano was Sicilian-born, New York-raised, and completely ruthless. He did what no criminal before him had done. He organized the American Mafia into a national commission, modeled on Cosa Nostra's cupola back in Sicily. 5 New York families, territories, rules, a board to settle disputes without bloodshed. He created the most powerful criminal network in the Western world, and back in Sicily, Cosa Nostra was growing even faster. After World War II, the island was in 1970s. They had moved into the most profitable trade in criminal history, heroin. The Sicilian Pipeline, as American authorities called it, was a network stretching from the poppy fields of Turkey through Sicilian processing labs into the veins of American cities. At its peak, Cosa Nostra was moving an estimated $1.65 billion worth of heroin into the United States every single year. Politicians were on the payroll. Police chiefs looked the other way. Judges were either bought or killed. Cosa Nostra didn't fear the state. It had become the state, but power this absolute has a price. In the late 1970s, Cosa Nostra tore itself apart. A ruthless faction from the town of Corleone, led by a man named Salvatore Riina, known simply as the Beast, began a war of extermination against rival families. Riina had a simple strategy: kill everyone who could threaten you: bosses, underbosses, their brothers, their sons, their cousins, witnesses, politicians, judges. Nobody was untouchable. In 1982, they killed General Carlo Alberto Dalla Chiesa, the man who had defeated the Red Brigade's terrorists. They shot him and his wife in the street. In 1983, they car-bombed Rocco Chinnici, the chief investigating magistrate, and in 1992, they killed the two men closest to destroying them. Judge Giovanni Falcone, the lawyer who had spent a decade building the most comprehensive criminal case in Italian history, died in the Capaci bombing. 2 months later, his closest colleague, Judge Paolo Borsellino, was killed by another car bomb in Palermo, 57 days apart. Two of Italy's greatest legal minds, erased. But Cosa Nostra had made a fatal mistake. They had pushed too far. The assassinations triggered national outrage unlike anything Italy had seen. The government deployed the army to Sicily, 7,000 soldiers on the streets of Palermo. New anti-mafia laws were rushed through Parliament, and, crucially, the pentiti began to talk. Pentiti means the repentant. They were Cosa Nostra members who, faced with life imprisonment, broke the sacred oath and became informants. The first and most important was Tommaso Buscetta, a senior boss who gave Judge Falcone thousands of hours of testimony before his death, laying bare the entire structure of Cosa Nostra. Armed with that testimony and years of evidence, Italy launched what became known as the Maxi trial, the largest criminal prosecution in history. 474 defendants, a specially built bunker courthouse in Palermo, and in 1987, the verdict: 19 life sentences, 342 convictions. For the first time in its history, Cosa Nostra had been put on trial and lost. Salvatore Riina, the Beast, was finally captured in 1993 after 23 years as a fugitive. He died in prison in 2017, aged 87, still refusing to cooperate. His successor, Bernardo Provenzano, was captured in 2006. He had been hiding in a farmhouse outside Palermo, communicating through handwritten notes called pizzini. Tiny, folded messages passed through couriers. One by one, the bosses fell. But here is what nobody tells you about Cosa Nostra. It didn't die. In 2023, Italian authorities arrested 200 Cosa Nostra members in a single operation. The organization still controls significant parts of Palermo's construction and waste management industries. New bosses have risen to replace the ones in prison. Cosa Nostra adapted. It went quiet. It stopped the bombings, stopped the high-profile assassinations, because it learned the lesson the hard way. Visibility is weakness. The mafia that made headlines is the mafia that gets caught. The mafia that survives is the one you never see. And perhaps that is the most terrifying thing of all. If you want to know what happened after the fall, the new Cosa Nostra, the silent empire, follow Dark Truths TV. The full story is just getting started.